Good morning and happy Saturday to you, everyone. Hope you're enjoying your start to the weekend. I'm going to start a mini series on clicker training today. Clicker training, you've probably heard about it if you've owned a dog for more than a couple of weeks. And today I want to explain a little bit about what is clicker training, what kind of methodology, why do they call it clicker training, why do you use something that clicks to train your dog. And also, I want to kind of go over today some pros and cons with clicker training. And I'll be going over that throughout the entire series and offering it in my opinions of others, what I believe that this type of training's good for, its pros, its cons, everything that you can imagine when it comes to clicker training. I'm going to kind of throw it in there. Okay, so what is clicker training? Basically, it's a use of a marking system. In marine mammal training, you use, with dolphins and sea lions, you'll use a whistle, and it's used to mark a behavior that the animal does, and it's used to shape the behavior. In other words, when the animal does something in particular, you'll blow a whistle and then you'll give it fish. Now, for many years when I trained dolphins, we started off simply by putting our hands in the water and shaking our hands. And when the dolphins would come over to the hand, we'd blow a whistle and there would be fish. And the hand was used to get the dolphins' attention because they'd be in a big pool, a big pen, and you want them to come over here and start working with you, interacting with you. And then whenever they would do a certain behavior, if the behavior was correct, we'd blow this whistle and spontaneously right behind it came the fish. Okay, so in clicker training, it's not using a whistle, but it's using a clicker to shape behaviors in your dog. Now, here's a couple things, and here's a couple of my issues that I have with some of this. Karen Pryor is a noted author, dog trainer, who has really been kind of like the driving force behind clicker training in the United States. And she wrote a book called Clicker Training. And I took this out of her book, and she writes in there, the first thing to understand about dolphin training, she's a former dolphin trainer as well, is that you are working with an animal you can't punish. Now, I'm just going to state emphatically right here, right now, as we move along this trail doing clicker training. Obviously, Karen, you didn't train dolphins for war. We trained them for war. We trained them to take out combatant swimmers, and we trained them to detect bottom-laid mines and carry explosive packages to those bottom-laid mines. The animals are not harmed in any way, but I'm telling you what, we had to have reliability. And that's going to be one of those just prevailing issues that I have with clicker training. I think it's great for many things. I just don't think if you need your dog to reliably respond to you under any condition that you can imagine, any reasonable condition in which you may find yourself interacting with your dog or your dog interacting with the environment around it, this just may not be the tool for you. Okay, so our dolphins, for example, in their pens, they had rub ropes, big, thick ropes, about yay thick, and it stretched across that pen. Let me tell you something. A dolphin loves a rub rope. They use it for many things, to scratch and itch, to get skin off of them. They just love playing with it, going over it and under it and pushing it up out of the water. They love their rub ropes. So when you just, on a particular day, if that particular dolphin decided, I don't think I want to work today, then that's it. Rub rope came out. And I'm telling you what, you've never seen a fit get pitched like a dolphin when you take out its rub rope. Oh yeah, now I'm suddenly ready to do some work. Don't you dare take my rub rope. So that was one of the ways that we were able to achieve reliability, to get the attention of that incredibly smart marine mammal. Also, there's food withholding. Everyone does it. Everyone. I mean, you're dealing with animals, so you can't put a leash on them, you can't put a collar on them. You have to gain their attention, or you better have a whole lot of them, a whole lot in reserve. In other words, if Nick doesn't want to work today, move on to Sally. Sally doesn't want to work today, move on to Cherry. Cherry doesn't want to work today, move on to Otto, and so on and so forth, all the way down the list. You better have a whole lot of marine mammals. And most institutions, including all the institutions, Marine Land, SeaWorld, United States Navy, we didn't have tons and tons of dolphins because it costs millions of dollars just maintain them, to train them and maintain their health. So there was none of this, okay, well, we've got 20 in reserve in case this particular marine mammal doesn't want to work. So when they didn't work, fish was withheld from them. Yeah, make them hungry. Make them hungry. No, they wouldn't starve themselves. They'd get to a certain point just like you would and go, okay, I guess it's got to work. Yeah, and they would go to work, every single one of them. I did this for years and years, and I never saw an animal even get close to starvation or dehydration. They would want to work. Typically it took about 1 day or half a day, and they're ready to work. Another thing that we used to instill reliability in these dolphins was to interact with all the other dolphins but that one. Yeah, take the other ones out to sea. Give the other ones fish. Give the other ones our attention. And now all of a sudden you got a dolphin going, what's my name, Skip? Am I Skip? Yeah, you're Skip right now because you decided to skip working for us. You got a job to do. We have a mission to complete. So again, that's one part of this book I definitely disagree with, is the issue about not using any sort of punishment. It is. It truly is. And you have to do that to instill reliability. So again, I don't know where she trained dolphins, but she must have trained somewhere where they had a real ton of them. A long list of names on that list. We just didn't have that. When I was training dolphins, we had about 12 at that time. So they had a job to do, had lives to save. We had to make sure they did the work. Okay, so clicker training is this, okay, in a nutshell. Again, taken from the marine mammal world in which whistles were used. Here's how it shapes, here's how it happens. In the very beginning, case in point, I got Captain Caldwell, come over here. I have never, ever clicked a clicker around him except for a second ago when I first started this video and I clicked it for you so you could hear it. This means nothing to him. There you go. Put up here my microphone so you can hear it. He's looking at me. He's curious. But what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. So in semiotics, there's some sort of auditory sound happening. Click, 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 click. Just like you. If you heard this, what would that mean? You may look around and go, what was that noise? What was that noise? But you wouldn't know anything to do about it. You wouldn't know how to interpret that, if you need to respond to it. Neither does a dog. And neither did a dolphin with a whistle until you blew the whistle, which at that point there, that was a neutral stimulus. Neutral. It was meaningless. Didn't do anything for me. But when you blew the whistle and then you presented that unconditional stimulus, they start to become paired together. So you have your neutral stimulus, click, and then a presentation of a treat. So come on over here, cow dog. Click, treat. Click, treat. Now give me about a whole bag of treats, and soon I will have this neutral stimulus presenting the treat right after, within 2 seconds, and over a period of time, this clicker will become a conditioned stimulus. Meaning, when I hear that click, there's going to be a treat. And what clicker trainers want to accomplish when they're shaping behaviors is to do this enough. Case in point. So let me get a little treat ready here. Galdo, free, come here. And boom, he sat. I give him a treat. Okay? Free, Galdo. Sit. Click, give a treat. They're hoping, and it can happen, trust me, this can happen, that you do this enough that when you do this little click, when they do a certain movement or a certain behavior and you reward it, what your goal is to eventually reach a point called a fixed action pattern. Fixed. It is a fixed behavior. It is a deep-rooted habit. It's like channels running through your brain. It is the old red light, green light. If we switch the rules today, man, a lot of us would have a difficult time changing our habits of driving our vehicles if we suddenly found out we had to start going on red. That's what you're hoping for, a fixed behavior. But that takes time, a long time for that to happen. And also, this controlled stimulus that I'm doing here, this thing gets controlled, turns into a controlled stimulus, and the shaping occurs typically in most of the clicker training that I've seen in a controlled or conditioned environment under certain provocative events or stimulus. That's where it happens. I've seen it in show rings. Those same dogs that did dynamite in the show ring went and do squat outside the show ring. I'm just being honest here. That's what I've seen. It's a great tool for a conditioned environment. Just me and the dog, one-on-one. Just me and the dog in a show ring. The problem is that when this dog starts to become trained in very distracting environments that want to interact with the dog every bit as much as you do, if not more. Case in point, if a dog walked up right now, if a squirrel ran by the deck at this moment, if I happen to find myself at a dog park, it's how can I get my dog to come over here and sit and me do the click? How can my clicker get my dog to do that for me and do it every single time? Again, I'm not sure if it can be done because I haven't done it personally, but I don't know of anyone that has. Not to say that they're not out there. I just don't know it. Okay, but we'll explore this more as we start going over each day some behaviors, and we'll actually teach captains some behaviors using the clicker. But here's some pros behind it. One thing that is definitely a pro. It is a consistent marker. And when I say marker, I'm using a term to denote a critical time period. For example, you hear in a relay race, on my mark, get set, go. So what's the mark? It's probably a starter gun or some sort of whistle or a flag being dropped. Something like that. That's the mark. That's the very second in which you can now perform the activity. This is a consistent marker. This click sound is the same regardless of who presses that darn button. So it's kind of void of any sort of emotions that could cause the animal to become confused at that moment. It takes away any anger. It's just pure vanilla. It's just straight up. It is a click, just like a whistle is a whistle. No matter how hard you try to blow on, no matter how hard you try to press this button, it's the same darn sound. That really helps an animal with consistency because it simply clears up any confusion. The other pro behind it is it makes the trainer actually pay more attention to the dog than if they are simply going to say good boy or good girl. It requires more attention paying because you have to pay attention to the fact that you're holding a device. You got to know where your thumb is on it or whatever finger you want to use, and you got to get ready to press that darn thing at exactly that right moment. Gal dog, sit. There you go. Good boy. Good boy. You've got to be ready for that. And I have found that people who use whistles to train or clickers, they tend to pay a little bit more attention than the fella who's just using their voice. And also the other thing that it does is it's a device in which the animal becomes extremely familiar with, and you just don't hear a lot of these sounds out there in the world. A whistle, yes, a lot of people have whistles, but the clicker is something that is kind of unique, this little metallic sound. So not a lot of confusion as far as replication of this sound. Okay, so now let's get down into some cons. What are some cons about this? Well, it's an auditory signal. Dogs learn with their eyes first, touch second. Auditory, olfactory, third and fourth, or fourth and third, depends on the environment. But again, they are way behind vision and touch. So now you're using a device that taps into a sense that the animal doesn't use as a priority all the time. Its eyes are getting fixed on some sort of search image formation, concentrated like a laser beam. I have tunnel vision in my brain right this second and not hearing the click behind you. How many times have you been engaged in something, either reading a book, watching TV, checking something out, and someone's going, hey, Bryan. Hey, Bryan. 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 And you find, what? Quit yelling at me. And you go, dude, I've been calling you for like the last 5 minutes and you didn't respond to me. So if it happens to us, it can definitely happen to your dog. So again, it's auditory. Two, I like being intimate with my dog. This isn't the least bit intimate. It's not at all. I like saying, good job, gal dog. Way to go, buddy. You're my man. I like my dog knowing what my state is from an emotional standpoint. I'm a human. I have a right to get angry every now and then. Yeah, I've gotten angry at Captain. There's been more than a few times. Ask him. There's times in which I'm overjoyed. There's times where I'm going, okay, that's just crap. Just going to be honest with you, dog. That's like operating at 60%, and I need you to be up at least about 90% right now. I like my dog knowing if I am genuinely pleased with the behavior and when I'm not. Okay? So this thing doesn't do that. It only says I'm happy. It doesn't say I'm not happy. And a dog needs to know when you're not happy. They need to know that. All right? So this is just a one-sided, one universe type or one dimension type universe. It only does that. What do you do if you're not happy with the performance? You don't click. Okay? So this bad behavior just keeps on perpetuating itself because it's being driven by another influence other than you and your treat and your darn little clicker. What do you do now? What do you do now? Okay, and then 3, it's clumsy. Okay, so now imagine I got to do this. Gal dog, leash up, buddy. There you go, my man. Okay, now I got this in my hand. Clicker. Now I have leash in my hand. And treat bag over here. A lot of us are going, okay, I got to make this dog sit. There we go. That's a good sit. And, oh, hold on. There we go. Boom. And I'll give you a second here. A lot to do. A lot to do, especially for beginner trainers. People who have dogs who aren't cooperating the least bit like Captain. Captain makes it all look easy because he's already trained. But man, you take a dog who's spinning around on you, you're trying to get it to sit, or you're trying to get it to get off of you, and you're trying to do this little clicker thing at the same time, and then you're trying to fumble for a treat. It can be very difficult. It takes a lot of practice to become very skilled with doing this and making sure the timing is good. 4, you have to have it on you. So again, I love teachable moments. I don't want to just take 20 minutes out of my day and start working on some behaviors. I like teachable moments. Training to me occurs 24/7. If I'm around you, Captain, you're going to know. You're going to know in a real hurry if I'm going to tolerate that behavior or if I'm not. If I'm going to reward that behavior or if I'm not. If I'm going to ignore it or if I'm not. I don't waste training seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years. I don't waste it. If that dog's around me right here, he's getting trained. Trust me, you may have picked up, if you want to, go back and watch the very first video. He thinks I have treats laying on a rail over here, right behind the camera. And he was trying to get up there to get at those treats, and I was worried he's going to knock my tripod right over the edge and down the mountain it's going to go. And you guys get to watch a video of this camera rolling down the mountain. And so I just kind of gave him a little eye over there, one of those little, don't go there. And he saw me, and that was it. That was the end of it. I love teachable moments. Love them. And you don't get to do that with it. Okay, and then lastly, okay, you get to clicking this thing a lot. You hand it to kids. You do a lot of this, and you're just practicing with it and go, man, that's a pretty cool sound, pretty cool sound. Well, let me tell you something. You can have a conditioned stimulus like this click. But when you click it enough times without following it up with that unconditioned stimulus called the food or that pet or that attaboy, then this will degrade, this signal will degrade to response 0. It'll start losing its effect. Meaning, not only do you have to have this, but you better make sure you only click it exactly that moment in which your dog does exactly the behavior you're trying to get from the dog. Right then. And then make sure you can follow up with something. If we blew the whistle for those dolphins and we didn't present fish within a matter of seconds, that was it. In fact, if anything, now they start trying a whole bunch of other behaviors, trying to run through their little resume, and then they actually start to invent behaviors. And then someone inadvertently fires off a whistle, and now all of a sudden the dolphins go on, because they're wicked smart, they go, all right. So they like the ignore you thing a little bit here, me spin around in circles here in the middle of the pool. If I just kind of give them one eye real quick, I get a fish. You've got to be very careful if you're shaping something with a distinct little marker like this. Your timing has to be explicit. Okay, and then one last little thing. Again, I'm not here to pick on Karen Pryor. I respect any dog trainer that's out there. I'm just simply pointing out what's in her book, and I'm offering up my opinion to it. She writes in there, you can't say a word, even good boy, with the split-second precision that you can achieve with a click. Really. Yellow, free, sit, good boy. Okay, that was a lot faster than me going, yellow, free, sit. I had to find that button with my thumb. I can say good boy much faster. I can say bad boy much faster than I can lift my hand or I have my thumb slide from an off position to that button position. Yeah, what if it gets flipped around on me? All this dangling here from my wrist. I just think little thing's supposed to do. What do you do? Okay, so again, that's just starting out today. A little bit about what is clicker training. It's a marking system to shape behaviors in animals. It does rely mostly on positive reinforcement only. It only rewards good behaviors. It ignores bad behaviors. And by the process of doing this over a period of time, you start to shape the animal to a point that you will achieve a fixed pattern from that particular signal: sit, down, stay, come, so on and so forth. Went over the pros, went over the cons with you. Tomorrow we'll move along and we'll actually start shaping some behaviors using the clicker. Again, there are pros that I do love about it. I went over those, but I also have some major cons. I have some major issues with it. But again, for me, I remember a cattle dog that I had prior to Captain. Yeah, I hate to say it, buddy, but you're not number one. You're number one to me right now, but you weren't my first cattle dog. I taught a cattle dog named Sid to basically, when I would go bang, I would just act like I was firing a gun off. I'd go bang. As soon as I do that, he immediately plopped down on his back and put all four legs up in the air. And while I'm staring at him, he would remain like that. But then as soon as I would turn my head back to the audience, because I was always doing this in front of a bunch of grade school children, he'd look at me and roll back on his stomach. And all the children go, oh, he's alive, he's alive. And I slowly turn my head back to him. He'd roll back over and stick his legs up in the air. That was a very complex behavior that took about 9 months for me to train that in that wicked smart cattle dog. And I used only a clicker to do so. I only marked the behaviors. For me, if the dog didn't do it, it's just kind of embarrassing. That was all. I didn't need him. It was never going to cause him to get in any sort of position where he'd harm himself, harm someone else by not coming when called or whatever. It was for fun. And if you're going to teach dog tricks, definitely a great tool for that. You can have a lot of fun doing it, can motor along, shape those behaviors. But there were times in which I went bang and Sid didn't do it. He just didn't. He had his eye on some kid, and some kid might have had something in their hand or act like they're eating something. I don't know. He just didn't do it. But most of the time, he did. And that was fine, because then I just moved on to another trick. But all the tricks that I trained, I used a little clicker to do that. Took it from my marine mammal training. Okay, guys, that's it. A little bit long-winded today. Just want to kind of touch base on that so a lot of these things will make sense. I'll kind of reiterate these things as we move along. And you can decide for yourself, hey, do I want to do this? I might want to try this with my particular dog. And if you do, good on you. Any action is better than no action. Let's just all move forward, and I'm going to move forward with it, and I'm going to show you how to do a whole bunch of training using the good old clicker. Here, cow dog, sit. There we go. Attaboy. Yeah, I'm going to try and turn this thing into some sort of conditioned stimulus before the end of the day if I can. All right, guys, that's it for today. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I'll be checking in with you guys tomorrow. We'll move along this trail on Clicker Training. Have a good one.